Hello, and welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. I am so incredibly delighted, excited, inspired by the person who is sitting across the screen from me today that I am so excited to share with you. Her name is Michelle Jaeger Wicks, and she is a Baltimore based project manager, coastal artist, and traveler who is equal parts planner and wanderer. And she and her husband co-lead Wondering We Wonder. Something I feel like I had to practice like 5 times to be able to say, Wondering We Wonder. And they share what it looks like to build a life on the road while staying grounded in purpose, partnership, and practical systems. She's traveled to all 50 states, and now she's settled back in Baltimore, where her and her husband offer their RV as a luxury rental for anyone who wants a taste of the road without that full-time commitment. And then most recently, she has founded Tones and Tides Studio, where she creates coastal watercolors and oil paintings that invite reflection, courage, and joy. She launched this back in December 2025, and she's focused on painting the emotion of the sea and the humanity it reflects. And there's so many calls inside of there that she has answered, and I can't wait to talk more about that as we get into the interview. And before we do, I also love to share how I met people who I end up interviewing. So Michelle and I have known each other for probably going on a decade, where we met in a personal development program where Michelle was actually my coach, and I got the privilege and honor of experiencing all of her incredible gifts. And then we've been dear friends ever since. And then I've got the privilege of being her coach when she answered another call, which we'll get to. And now I'm just like so grateful for your friendship and who you are in the world. And you've been such an inspiration to me. And I cannot wait to share that inspiration with everyone listening. So thank you so much for joining me.
Wow. I should have you do all of my interviews and introductions. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to share space with you anytime, whether it's as your friend or as a guest here today. And an honor to share my journey, my story, my calls that I've answered, and in hopes to sharing the joy that it brings me.
Thank you so much. And yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to have Michelle back on the podcast today, she actually was a guest many years ago when I first started the podcast. And Michelle was my last stop on my year-long solo road trip. So you've been listening to this podcast from the very beginning. You might have heard her episode. And she came to mind because I'm gearing up for this masterclass, Answer the Call. And she is such an example of what that means. So if you are listening to this and there is a call on your heart and you've been wanting to follow it or you don't know what it is, but you know you want to make a change, this conversation is for you. So the first question I have for you, Michelle, is what does that even mean to answer that call? Like when you hear that phrase, what do you think about?
When I hear the phrase answering the call, I typically think about the chaos, the lack of clarity, the fear, but also the other side, the excitement, the curiosity of what's available. And I also hear, so when I think about answering the call, I think about in order to answer a call, you first have to be able to hear it. And so are you in a place to listen?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, answering the call is just about responding, taking an action. It doesn't have to be the right action because there is no right or wrong action. There's just action. You're either doing something or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take action first, clarity will come second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. And it's interesting that you said the first thing that you said was chaos and lack of clarity. So tell me why that was the first thing that you thought about when I asked you this question, or the first thing that you shared.
That was the first thing I thought of because I am somebody who likes to plan everything. People have called me A+ type personality, not just type A, but A+. People have mentioned that I see the world through Excel spreadsheets. And, planning is a very big part of how I see and process the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when a call comes, whether or not that's how you see the world, but when a call comes, it's not like it was pre-planned. It's not like somebody scheduled an appointment with you to then call you about this thing that's on your heart or this potential future that's available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no good time or right time. It just shows up.
Mm. Yes, there's no good time or right time. It just shows up. Yeah, and it can feel chaotic, right? You could be going down one path and you're like, yeah, this is my path. And then a call comes that's like totally out of the blue and you're like, what? This is the direction that's calling to me now? Or sometimes it's just like a total redirect or the universe like putting something in front of you that's like, nope, this is an obstacle or something. And it sounds like from that chaos, if we choose to embrace it and choose to dance with it, it could turn into beautiful things. So, I would love to hear, and I'm sure, like we said, there's many, and we're going to talk about many more. And is there one moment that comes to your mind now that feels like a tipping point moment where you answered a call? And maybe it changed the trajectory of your life.
Wow, that is quite the question. I don't know that there was one.
Right. There might have been many, but just like
Yeah.
whatever the first one that pops to your mind is that you feel called to share.
I would say a major moment where I answered the call was around planning my retirement.
Hmm.
So, if you listen to that last podcast episode, it was all about wealth building and creating financial freedom for myself. And part of that was around my retirement plans.
Mhm.
And what started as a dream to retire to the Caribbean or South America led to curiosity, which, as I mentioned before, sort of provides for me my compass.
Hmm.
So the more curious I can get when a call comes, such as retiring to the Caribbean, the more certainty that comes. And at the time, I answered this call. I want to retire to the Caribbean. So I started doing all this research. We traveled to the Virgin Islands and Costa Rica. And what we came to the conclusion of was that is not the lifestyle we would want to live. To be constrained by an island
Hmm.
or another country is not actually consistent with other priorities or commitments in our lives. But what it did make available was if we moved to the Caribbean,
Mhm.
what would we want to be accountable for, responsible for, make sure we checked off, when it comes to the United States,
Hmm.
and seeing national parks was on my list.
Hmm.
So before I move to the Caribbean, I want to live in an RV and travel the country.
Hmm.
And not that we ever moved to the Caribbean, and that's no longer the retirement plan, but the process helped clarify. Again, going back to curiosity as a compass, it helped us to clarify that we want to live a life of freedom, curiosity, and connection.
Hmm.
And it launched this whole planning around where would we go? Would we have a home base? How long would we be gone for? While we're traveling, how do we work? I was already working remote, but my husband wasn't. So that launched a whole campaign at his company to get
Hmm.
him into a remote opportunity so that this could happen. And even though I could collectively put this under one umbrella called answering the call,
Mhm.
either retiring or living on the road, within that, there were so many calls that I both answered and declined to answer.
Mm.
um, but at the end of that last episode where you and I were together, you had created this phenomenal recap. And I often go back to that as a journal prompt. And one of the things that you leave people with is how can I take action with grace?
Mm.
And that grace piece is not something I have a very strong muscle in.
Mm.
I would continue to come back to that.
Mhm. Wow. So, one thing I'm hearing is that sometimes when you answer one call, it gives you more clarity, like you were saying at the beginning, that either lets you know that call is complete, that call wasn't really about what I thought it was about. It was actually just a tool to help me understand something about myself that maybe I would never have realized had I not followed that curiosity and then gotten that information. And it's when we have the confidence, the willingness to take action, to take a step, that we then get and are able to receive the next piece of information on the journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Alongside, when I was preparing for today's conversation, I was thinking through sort of guessing what you would ask me about. And I keep coming back to I was taking action, taking action, taking action.
Mm.
And part of what prevented some of the actions was I felt like I lacked the confidence to take that action. And as I reflected this morning in preparation for today, what I realized was confidence is not required,
Mm.
not a requirement. Confidence is the receipt.
Mm.
And so with each call I answered, my confidence grew such that I could hear more of the calls.
Mm-hmm.
I could accept or decline more of the calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that with that growing confidence came a growing sense of fear.
Mm.
And, would I choose almost like they were one hand, front and back in the sense that with more confidence comes more and larger calls.
Mm.
And am I that person that could answer a bigger call?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So many like mic drop moments in that. I love what you said is that confidence isn't required. Confidence is the receipt. It's what you get from answering the call. And this is something I think about a lot too. It's why one step of my Spark process that I teach my clients is about kinetic confidence because
Mm.
confidence comes through motion. Exactly what you said. Most people think they need confidence before doing something, but it's actually the doing something that helps you create the confidence. And you can also look to your past for evidence of confidence because we often look to the future and think, well, I'm not confident in this thing that I've never done before. And it's like, of course you're not. You've never done it before. But if you look at your past and ask yourself, well, where have I overcome obstacles? Where have I created things that I've never done before? What helped me do that? And it's not like the roadmap that the brain might want of like, oh, step one is exactly this and step two is exactly this. It's like, oh, I chose to believe I was capable of more than I thought. I chose to move forward even though I was scared. I chose to believe I could figure out whatever challenge presented itself. That's what leads to confidence. Sourcing your past and also being willing to move forward even when you've never done something before. So I love that example so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you said you decided to answer this call. It opened up so many things. Another thing that you said in everything that you talked about was there was calls you answered and calls you declined to answer. And I'm curious, what helped you differentiate or determine what's a call you really want to answer and what's a call that you don't? Because I think that can also be a challenge for people. Sometimes, maybe they have too many calls and they're like, well, I have 10,000 passions and like I can't do all of them. So therefore, I'm going to do none of them and I don't know what to do. So there's that. And then just, yeah, I'm curious if you could say more about that.
Yeah. I think when it comes to declining a call, if I think about it, answering a call does not exist in a vacuum.
Okay.
Some of us are spouses, parents. We take care of our parents. We have animals. We have plants that we take care of. We are executives or entrepreneurs. Like there's so much life
Mm.
that is is lifing around us.
Mm-hmm.
And when a call comes, part of being an adult is
Mm.
both being responsible for the commitments we have out in the world and being big enough to trust yourself that no matter if you want to answer that call, you can handle the commitments in your life.
Mm.
And it's always a choice. We like to joke, one of us loves living on the road, the other one loves me.
Nice.
And some of the calls that have come, part of what would have me decline is against the filter of, is this good for my marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Would this bring me closer to being connected to the people in my life?
Mm.
And earlier this year, my husband's remote opportunity ended, and we were left with my husband has to come back to Baltimore to work.
Mm-hmm.
And do I continue to live on the road, answering this call? Not just live on the road, but part of living on the road is that we are instructors of, and we lead various classes around what is it to live on the road? What is it to One of our famous ones is 10 things my spouse hates about living on the road, and all the bumps and lessons learned. And people love to hear what it's like for, a couple to live on the road in this tight quarters,
Mm-hmm.
and had at least 3 more instructor opportunities.
Mm.
So do I continue to answer this call of instructor, or do I put the commitment of my marriage? It's not a prioritization. It's not a comparison, but everything in our life is a choice and a call.
Mm.
Me being with him as he transitioned back to in-person work, as we figured out our new home base in Baltimore. All of that I wanted to do together. And then you come back to, well, I gave my commitment. I gave my word. I promised certain things out in the world.
Mm.
No problem. Everything can be resolved in a conversation. And so I called all my commitments, all these upcoming things, and we sorted out how to replace myself, reschedule. They were overbooked. It didn't matter, but everything could then get resolved.
Mm.
I was super clear on the call that I was answering,
Mm-hmm.
the commitments that mattered to me. And like, as you said, this kinetic confidence, I knew I could handle whatever came next.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot, what I'm hearing and what I think a lot about is this balance of masculine and feminine energies, which I see as like logic and intuition, structure and flow. And these calls to me can feel very intuitive, very kind of like feminine, this yin energy. And then the yang, sometimes that energy is like asking yourself, looking at the rest of the structure of your life. What else
Yeah,
is important to me? What else matters to me? And being able to use both of those sides of yourself to answer these questions of what is it time for now? What call do I feel compelled to answer now? Because, yeah, we have limited time and energy and resources. And if we spread them all super thin and tried to do 10,000 things at once, it would be really challenging to be impactful at anything. So I love just hearing your process of really going through this like filtering system of what are my values? What's important to me? What am I learning from the experiences that I'm going through? And then making new choices and new commitments and always coming back to this internal compass of what really matters most to you at the end of the day.
beautifully said.
Hmm.
Humans are dynamic, and
Hmm.
we need to have grace for that. And we need to embrace that. And
Yeah.
we need to love that about ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm like hearing too, when you talked about at the beginning, what can kind of trip people up from answering the call. I think also it's just embracing that it can be a messy feeling journey, right? Because I feel like sometimes people might think, oh, what if I answer this call and then change my mind? Like, what are people going to think of me? All these thoughts that we might have. And it's just like, so what? So what if you answer this call and a month later, you're like, actually, I don't want to do any of that anymore, like you did with the retirement dreams. It's okay to say something out loud, to declare a dream, to declare a goal, and then to choose later that you don't want to do it. Like that's okay too. So that's just really coming through right now that maybe if you're listening to this, maybe you need to hear. I don't know, but being able to embrace the messiness or the dynamism, dynamic nature of answering this call. So thanks for sharing that. So I know something else that you talk about is commitment over perfection. And I'm curious what that means to you and where maybe perfection has gotten in the way of you answering the call and how being committed helped you get past that like A plus plus nature and answer the call anyways.
Um, can you ask that again? Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm talking about commitment over perfection. And you talked about this like type A nature and all the planning that in the past might have gotten tripped up in. And I'm curious if perfectionism has ever potentially gotten in the way, has gotten in the way of you answering a call. Maybe it has been around your art journey. I don't know. Is there anything that's where perfection has showed up and what has helped you get past that, whether it's commitment or another energy that helped you move past perfectionism and follow the call anyways?
I would say perfectionism is a huge driving force for me. It's one of the ways that I wound up being. It's one of the filters that is always available. And the perfectionism I find for myself is what stopped my action.
Mm.
If I couldn't figure out how to do it perfectly, most
Mhm.
efficiently, that guaranteed success, I wouldn't even take the first action.
Mm.
And once I was able to see that for me, that was how I approached everything. It didn't matter if it was cleaning out my inbox and just clearing out 5 emails versus all 500. It didn't matter if it was about menu planning or, as you mentioned, starting this art chapter, answering that call. Perfectionism became my excuse.
Mhm.
And I think for all of us, we have a reason, we have an excuse, we have a justification, we have a back door. I think we have a back door that gives us permission to only go so far.
Mhm.
And what if we approached these calls with a different filter?
Mhm.
Most recently, I've been playing around with what if I couldn't fail?
Mm.
And what if what was right there, it didn't matter what action I took, what answer, what call I answered, I wasn't going to fail.
Mhm.
So often, the fear that stops us, in my case, the perfectionism that stopped me,
Mhm.
got in the way of any success.
Mm.
Just what I thought was the ideal. I'll give you an example. In the spring, this new call of art was tugging on my heart, and I didn't want to say it out loud,
Mm.
tell anyone, because then I would have to be responsible for. I have another call, and I would have to choose. I would have to tell people I chose, and if I choose to follow it, they're going to see. It's going to now be visible. And I I'm classically trained. I went to college for fine arts, and oil painting is my preferred medium.
Mm.
But living on the road, oil paints and a nomadic lifestyle don't match. And I didn't have the confidence to do any other medium.
Mm.
And it tugged on me. It took away my joy. It prevented me from being fully present because all I could think about was this call I wanted to answer and couldn't, because in my
Mm.
mind, I couldn't find the perfect way to answer it.
Mhm.
Back to what I was saying in the beginning, which is curiosity is a compass.
Mm.
And if I got really curious about how could I answer this call, given my circumstances, given my situation,
Mhm.
for whoever's listening to this podcast, your circumstances might be family, children, financial, time. You can find a way to answer the call and just take an action.
Mhm.
For me, that looked like watercolor. It's quick to dry. It's small to a small amount of supplies. And for me, as an oil painter, I can politely say that to me, watercolor was both inferior and intimidating
Mm.
because you can't control it the same way you can oil paint. Uh, and I set that aside, this bias that I had around art supplies and
Mm.
artists, so that I could answer this call.
Mhm.
And it opened up an entire world. And so the moment I was able to set aside that filter, which again for me is perfection, I was able to be curious and actually answer the call.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. So I just came back from a week in Costa Rica with the dance theater company Amenti. And one thing that they talk about is that limitations breed creativity. And it's what you just said of you couldn't use oil paint, so you had a choice. Are you just going to be like, nope, I therefore can't do anything because I can't use my preferred medium of oil painting? Or am I willing to get creative and
Yeah.
see what else I can create? And luckily, you said yes to that call and you were willing to explore other things and also shift your perspective because you had to let go of, oh, watercolor is, inferior and all these thoughts. And now you're doing something that you never would have previously chosen, but because you answered the call, because you got creative, it opened up this whole other world. So I feel like that's such a powerful example of like you said, if someone, we all have circumstances and we can look at those circumstances as reasons why we can't do something, reasons why we can't answer the call, or we can get creative about it and see what else really matters to us at the end of the day, what's the essence of what matters, and then what's the form that that can take, and let the creativity be the compass.
Yes.
So good. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Yeah, when I answered the call, the moment I chose creativity over perfection,
Mm.
it was about 2 months time between when I was painting watercolors and I was featured in my first art market. And if I had done that with oil painting, I would have never, I don't think I would have gotten there.
Hmm.
And I love that limitation breeds creativity, because inside of the limitations I had, an entire world I would have never created for myself showed up for me to step into and embrace.
Yeah, I love that. And I think about it so much when I was on my year-long road trip. So many people ask, did you have an RV? Like, how'd you get around? And I was like, nope, I had my car and I put all my stuff in my trunk, and I was hosted by people everywhere that I went. And that was a conscious choice. And I could have let money be a constraint. Like when I was like, oh my God, it's going to cost all this money. I need to get an RV. I need to do all these things. I'm like, nope. I don't. One of the only supplies that I bought for this road trip was this microphone that I'm using right now, because I started the podcast on the road trip and I was like, I need my computer, I need a microphone, I need my car, I need my suitcase, the end. So, like you said, like we can create all kinds of back doors, way outs, excuses why something isn't possible. And oh, that reminds me of what I wanted to ask you about. When you said growing confidence leads to growing fear, yeah, it's true. Because once you let go of all of the reasons why not, you're like, shoot, now I have to do it. Now I have to follow that call. I have nothing stopping me. And then we have the opportunity to again expand. And I think that's where the importance of taking it one step at a time, because it's not like, okay, I'm at the bottom of the mountain and I need to like jet pack myself up to the top. Like you get stronger as you walk. Your muscles grow as you take the steps. So not thinking about the final destination, and I think being willing to take it one step at a time, that's where you develop the skills along the way as well, I think.
I absolutely agree. And I think also that's where, that's where finding structures and finding community to support you
Mm-hmm.
underlines what you're committed to.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was starting this life on the road, I actually reached out to you and I said, you know what, I'm going to cry. I'm really struggling. Now this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, part of living on the road was a discovery of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
To me, spirituality and connection to whether it's, whatever your higher being is, to me is not in a building
Mm-hmm.
that we go to X amount of times. It's in community, it's in nature, it's in connection, it's expressed through love. And I knew that living on the road for me was going to be an avenue to discovering that.
Yeah.
And I come to you in a very eager but also scared space. I didn't know how to connect all this that I had ruminating.
Yeah.
And you offered to like a coaching container,
Mm-hmm.
which again, that was another call. Was I going to
Mm-hmm.
answer this call?
Yeah.
And I did, and I'm so grateful,
Mm-hmm.
because those moments where I lacked the confidence, where I was at the bottom of the mountain, as you pointed to, you were there walking with me.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on this path. You have your muscle and you're willing to share it. And there are tons of people in our life that if you asked, they would be so honored
Mm-hmm.
to partner with you,
Yeah.
to be your community, to remind you of your power. And I think that's available for anyone who is a coaching client with you. I got reminded of my power
Mm-hmm.
every week. And if I was in a great space on our calls, I got to be further showered
Mm.
I needed to hear. And if I wasn't in a great space, I got called back to reality that I do have what I need. And it was such a great cadence as I built up my confidence, as I built up those muscles to then be on my own after that container,
Mm.
knowing that I had your support that whole time. And I was able to take what we learned in those coaching calls, and some of that is still my daily practice, some of
Mm.
my weekly practice. And every time I bring in the different elements, I think of, well, what would Gina say? Or, and even during that time, my perfectionism would get in the way. Well, I can't do that because it's not X. And you'd be like, well, it's also great to just out loud to someone
Yeah.
who's holding your commitment for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was such an honor to support you on that journey. And I think this is an important thing to call out. And I know I've experienced this so many times when it comes to answering the call, is like you said, it challenges us. When we are called to expand, when we're called to take on something we've never done before, it challenges our identity of what we think is possible, who we know ourselves to be. And we can get stuck in the water, that's just that we're swimming in. And to be able to have support from someone who's walked a similar path, who's been at the step one of the mountain and like traveled that mountain, I have found so helpful. And I've seen the impact that it has, on my coaching clients every time. So that's something too, that if you're feeling the call and your brain is telling you, you can't do this, you're not that person, know that identity is something you can cultivate. It's something you can train your brain to believe in. Something new is possible for yourself that your brain thinks right now is not possible. So please do not listen to that voice if it is telling you you cannot do this. There is help available, there is support available. And speaking of which, I'm offering a masterclass for this. It's called Answer the Call. And it's about taking time to really tune into what is that call on your heart. And if you don't know the whole picture, it's okay. If you don't know anything, it's okay. If you just feel like, well, I really want to make a change, but I don't know what it is, that's perfect. And if you do have more clarity, that's beautiful too. In this time, we'll explore that and we'll really see what's getting in the way. Because so often people think it's those excuses. They think it's the circumstances. They think it's, family, time, money, blah, blah, blah. But what it really is the fear, the self identity, all of these other things that we're going to get into on the masterclass, and then explore what can truly help you propel past the doubts, the fears, and insecurities, because it's possible. And it's like, I know the brain is so crazy. It like just will try to convince you that it's not. And I've experienced it time and time again. And even though I know this logically and experientially, like I still have to fight up against that growth zone. It's just always going to be there. So it's no problem if you're listening to this and you feel it. So if you feel called, go to ginakesbar.com/answer the call, and we can dive into all of that. But yeah, I just love everything that you shared, and knowing that it takes courage to even ask for that too. It takes courage to seek out support and answer that call. There's so many layers of this. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah. And, for people considering whether or not to participate in the masterclass, part of even being here today was me answering the call. And I was so inspired by this whole discovery and this
Mm.
masterclass that you're hosting, Gina, that this morning I woke up and I painted the emotion, the joy I felt, the
Mm.
excitement and the fear of even answering the call of being here today. And I want to gift it to you,
Mm.
to gift to, one of the attendees at your masterclass. And it's such a privilege to journey through life with you and alongside you and participate in these kind of conversations and even just examine, where am I doing that and where do I want to do it next?
Yeah. Oh
Thank
my
you
gosh.
for hosting these kind of conversations.
Thank you. And that's so special. I can't wait to see it. So, yeah, if you're listening to this, Michelle just told me this today too, and I'm so excited to share it with you. We'll be raffling off to somebody this beautiful creation that she's made. And what you just said, reminded me of something. I went to an event last night for International Women's Day, and there were a number of speakers, panelists, and just being in that room, being around so many other visionaries, trailblazers, entrepreneurs. There were so many like sparks of inspiration going off in my brain. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you're hearing stories of other people, when you're watching someone else like come up against their fears and they're going to do it anyways. It's like you're watching someone who's on a diving board and you're like cheering them on. It lifts all of us up. When we see examples of other people doing it, it gives us courage too. So I'm so excited for the people who are already gathering for this. I know it's going to be so potent. And that's why I constantly seek out conversations like this, why I share this podcast, because I feel like there is something contagious, magnetic, inspiring around being around other people who are doing this too. So thank you for being an example of that.
Thank you.
So, where can people find all of your things? Where can they buy your artwork? Where can they participate with you?
So all of my artwork is available on my Etsy shop, which if I know you, you're going to include that link in all of your things. You can find me on Instagram. So I'm currently found, the name of my studio is Tones and Tides. And this all started from holiday cards.
Mm-hmm.
Are we've been living in Ocean City, Maryland the past few years, and around the holidays you would go through these different cute shops, and most of the holiday decor is definitely beachy,
Mm-hmm.
but there was very little to no representation of people of color. And I want my decor, my home, my life to reflect the people in my life. It's my husband, my friends, my neighbors. And what started as a holiday card, I just wanted to paint a Black Santa, became this whole movement of
Mm-hmm.
including other holidays. Christmas is not the only holiday that people celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
There are many high holidays, and there are many people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this started Salty Santa Studio. And what started as a holiday greeting cards has now turned into what I'm calling Tones and Tides.
Mm-hmm.
There are tones both in the colors that I paint, but also the people in our world. And I want my art to reflect, as you said at the beginning, all of the coastal feelings that I have and the humanity that is supported, nourished, loved by the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love the ocean. And, in a changing climate that we're in today, it is so important to find things that bring you joy, that ground you. And for me, that's the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Is my way of sharing that joy and sharing that ability to be grounded. So I invite you, to find me on Etsy, to find me on Instagram. If you're interested in the sort of the RV life, we just hit 1,000 followers on TikTok. I just can't believe it. And so now it's, just to focus on art. To think I've been gone for 20 years and just coming back, I have so much I want to say. I didn't even know I wanted to say it. And so, in addition to the print that I did for you in the masterclass, I'm also doing a mini series. So 9 limited edition mini prints all around answering the call. So if you're looking for something, a totem, a desktop reminder, something to keep in the car, I'm going to have that available as part of answering the call.
I cannot wait. Are these done already? No way. This is like 24 hours.
Listen, but from when you asked me to be here today, I was so inspired. And, we talked yesterday. I had my Micah, so I'm also a student at Micah, talk about another call that I answered. And I came home and I had so much energy
Mm-hmm.
coursing through me that I had to get it out. I had to communicate
Mm-hmm.
that I'm currently communicating, which is on Canvas. And even my professor in class, he said the work that I had done in class was some of my best all semester. And
Wow.
there's something about answering the call, but also being aware of the fact that you are answering a call. There's something that comes alive, and I want that for everyone.
Wow. I cannot wait to see this artwork. And I have felt what you're describing. And it's truly an incredible feeling. And it's like why I'm so passionate about this, because I really think it's like what makes me feel the most alive. I'm like, what else am I on this planet for other than this? And it's just so powerful. And what I also wanted to call out is that you got the idea for this art
Mhm.
in like 2 months. You created Salty Santa Studios, and now it's Tones and Tides. And so often what I see holding people back, like you said, is that perfectionism is like, well, I don't have a whole website, so I can't do X. I don't have a logo made, so I can't do X. I don't know what name to use, so I can't do X. And it's like, what if you just pick a name today and then you can change it in 2 months? And sure, like brand name, blah, 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 but like you can do that. You don't have to wait until things are perfect, and knowing that the vision will likely change, and that's okay. So, yeah, I'm curious if there was one thing that if you wanted people to remember one thing from this conversation, what would it be?
Mm. If there's one thing that I want people left with, is that you create your own joy and you don't need permission from anyone.
Hmm. You create your own joy and you don't need permission from anyone. That's beautiful. And I'm sure everything that we just talked about. Anne, is there anything else that's like bringing you particular joy in your life right now?
I mean, is there anything bringing me joy right now?
And what I'm curious too is like even small moments, because I think sometimes in the path of answering the call, we can get attached to this like final destination, the like final place that we think we're going to get to, like the end of the trip when we're celebrating or whatever it is. And the journey is sometimes challenging, sometimes, full of drudgery. And I'm curious too of like even like you said, we create our own joy. So even in the moments where you're not at the top of the mountain yet, you haven't hit the peak, like are there any examples of like a tiny moment of joy? Maybe you're like looking at a blank canvas or you're like stuck. Like what are those tiny moments, if anything, that's coming to mind?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because you're right. I was thinking of what's a result I can share? What's a perfect ending that I could share? What is something I'm proud of that other people would be proud of or think is cool? And as you created that, what brings me so much joy right now is I have dialed in my morning coffee.
Nice.
And when I get up in the morning, I can't wait to, grind my beans, put it in, get my cup ready, and then bring that perfect cup of coffee. I know I just said perfect, but delicious cup of coffee to my workstation. So behind me, you can see where I do my oil paintings, but to my left here is where I do my watercolors. And every morning, painting has become my morning meditation.
Mm,
Enjoying that warm, delicious cup of coffee with
mm,
the space heater on as I paint what's on my morning soul
mm.
brings me so much joy. And as someone who works an extremely stressful job, to have those few minutes, and I'm not talking like 30, 45 minutes. Sometimes this is a 10-minute from the start of the coffee maker to the end of my painting. Those 10 minutes give me so much joy that carry me through most of my day.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like heaven. And yeah, I think this is really important because like we've been talking about, it's not just the final moments. Answering the call is a journey. So finding those little things along the way that nobody else might care about, nobody else might be celebrating, but can keep you going and you fueled, and know that you can create that inside of you every single day as you're answering this call. So thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to re-listen to this episode and just soak up all of your wisdom all over again. So, what a gift, what a pleasure, and what an honor it's been to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to connect with all of you. I forgot to say that if there's something on the Etsy shop that you like, I'm giving any of these listeners a 20% discount. So I'll include that code. It's Spark. Follow your
Nice.
Spark. if something in my shop sparks you, I want you to be able to take advantage of that.
So sweet. I can't wait to go shopping myself. So you heard it. Go check out Michelle's Etsy shop. If you're feeling the call, come to the masterclass, ginakasbar.com/answer the call. I cannot wait to hear about the calls that are on your heart and to be inside of a community where we're all having this conversation. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye.